In this video from 3 days and 3 noches, we're going to do an entire review of our excursion to El Cielo in Cozumel, Mexico. If you're traveling to the Cancun area, we highly recommend going to El Cielo in Cozumel. In fact, I cannot believe that we had been there almost a dozen times and never visited this amazing, beautiful island. So we're going to take you start to finish on this amazing trip, give you all of the information that you need, and give you all the tips and tricks, things that we wish we knew before going on this excursion. And if you're new to our channel, 3 Days and 3 Noches is not a travel vlog or a travel agency. We just bring you real, honest, to-the-point information about destinations that we travel to. So please like and subscribe and keep following us so we can bring you more content like this. So Cozumel is about a 35 to 40 minute ferry ride from Playa del Carmen, which is where you have to catch the ferry to get to Cozumel. We booked the excursion before arriving to Cancun. So that's one thing I recommend first, because these types of trips, especially the snorkeling ones to El Cielo, sell out quickly. We booked it through Viator.com, which we had used while we were in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and we were so impressed with them that we wanted to try to use them in Cancun as well for this trip. In the past, we always booked excursions through the resort, but this time we really wanted to try Viator here in Cancun because we liked it so much, but also we wanted to be on our own for the transportation getting to the excursion. So in the past, we've had to get on buses and pick all these different people up, and it really does lengthen the time of the day trip. And we chose El Cielo because we had heard it was one of the most popular destinations in Cozumel, and it was just absolutely beautiful, and it definitely did not disappoint. The excursion was starting at 10:15 from Cozumel, so it gave us plenty of time in the morning to navigate to the ferry and get over to the beach club where it was departing from. And once again, thank God for Nacho. So if you follow our channel, you know that when we are in Cancun, we only use Nacho tours for transportation. And thankfully, he was available that morning to pick us up and was able to guide us and recommend as to what time we needed to leave. The ferry from Playa del Carmen to Cozumel runs every hour, and we wanted to be sure that we made the 9 a.m. ferry so that we could make the departure time in Cozumel. So that means we had to leave our resort around 7:30 in the morning just to give us enough time and also allow for traffic in the morning with rush hour. Nacho also gave us a great tip regarding the ferry, which was to buy a one-way ticket and not a round-trip ticket, because there are multiple companies that run the ferries. And if you buy a round-trip ticket with one company, you have to take that company's ferry back. And since we really weren't sure what time we were coming back or when, we didn't want to be stuck having to wait for the certain ferry associated with the ticket. We arrived in Playa del Carmen around 8:20, maybe 8:30, and Nacho guided us as to where to buy our ticket. And a one-way ticket was $17 per person. Another important note is that sometimes the ferries do sell out, especially the ones in the morning. So it is important that you get there a little bit early before the ferry leaves so you can ensure that you get a ticket. So we made our way to the ferry line, maybe had to wait 15 or 20 minutes, and shortly we were on our way to Cozumel. The ferry itself is really large, and you can either sit downstairs or you can sit upstairs, which would be outside. And they do have a place where you get coffee. I got some coffee. You can have drinks. And we opted to sit outside. It was a little hot, but I just really wanted to see the view and just kind of see what it was like when we were arriving to Cozumel. They did not have any entertainment on this ferry like they did going to Isla Mujeres, but they did have music playing, and it really was a beautiful ride. We arrived to Cozumel around 9:40 a.m., which was perfect timing for our 10:15 departure. Another thing I loved about Viator.com was the communication. This happened in Puerto Rico and again with this trip. So as soon as I booked it, they were in communication with me. They guided me along the way. They asked me where I was coming from just to make sure I knew all the details about the ferry and what to expect when I got on the island and how to get a taxi and how much it was. Similar to Isla Mujeres, when you arrive to Cozumel, it can be a little overwhelming. So, for instance, immediately there are many booths that you can book excursions and tours, cars, carts, motorcycles. So, one tip is no matter what you're doing when you get to Cozumel, is just to make sure that you've done your research ahead of time and you know pretty much what you're doing, where you're going, and have your plans made. So I knew that we had to catch a taxi. I also knew that the taxi stops were pretty much right there when you get off the ferry stop. And thanks to Viator, I knew to expect to pay around $12 to $15 for the taxi ride to Tortugas Beach Club, which was where we were departing from. We had a great taxi driver named Miguel who not only got us to the destination safely, but gave us some more information about Cozumel as well. We arrived to Tortugas, I think around 10 o'clock, but plenty of time to check in and get settled before the excursion departed. But I wanted to make one note about Tortugas, and I'm sure it's similar to many of the places there, is that they're designed to get you to spend money once you are there. So even though you already paid for the excursion, every step along the way, they are hoping that you're going to continue to spend money at their beach club. And I'm certainly not criticizing it because that's how tourist attractions work. I mean, look at Disney World. But just trying to prepare you ahead of time so you know what to expect. And once you get past all of the shops, you get to the beach club where the excursion departs from. And so we did have about 10 or 15 minutes. So I couldn't resist getting a margarita for breakfast, right? I was in Mexico. This margarita was $16. And when they asked me what I wanted, they just said, "Do you want a margarita?" And I said, "Yes." So they gave me the most expensive one, which I fully expected. And you do get to keep the cup as a souvenir if you wanted, and you can take it on the boat as well. The beach club also has its own snorkeling area, which you have access to before and after your trip. So I did jump in real quick, wanted to cool off because I knew it was going to be a little bit before we were able to get into the water. The excursion left promptly at 10:15, and I would say there's probably around 20 people on the boat, which is why it probably sells out quickly. However, they do have 2 excursions per day. So one in the morning that leaves at 10:15 like we did, and then another one that I think it leaves at 2:30. I also love that this really was an all ages excursion. A lot of people ask me if it's appropriate to take children on some of the excursions that we go to. This is definitely one of them. There were all ages, there were little kids there, all the way up. So I would definitely say this is a great excursion for kids. Some of the passengers were also from the cruise ship. So this would be a great option for you if you're stopping in Cozumel and need a day trip. This is also a great option. It was also a very well organized and well run excursion. So they spoke both English and Spanish, gave us all the instructions, and just communicated during the entire trip. The excursion makes 2 stops. So the first stop is really where you do the majority of the snorkeling. And I would say the boat ride there was maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. They do provide all of the equipment, or you can bring your own. And they also give you the option of wearing a life vest or not wearing a life vest. I actually opted not to wear one. I'm a really strong swimmer. However, in retrospect, I think I probably would wear one in the future just because once you jump in, the boat does go kind of far out. So you have to swim pretty far to get back to the boat. They come back to you once the snorkeling part is over. So I would definitely opt to wear the life vest. The first stop was where the majority of the snorkeling takes place, and this would actually be a great beginner's snorkeling trip. So, someone that maybe it's a little apprehensive or has never snorkeled off a boat before, everyone's wearing a life vest, it's guided. You see beautiful fish, but it's nothing crazy. You feel very safe. So, someone more advanced might be a little bit bored on this trip, but it was perfect for someone like me because I love to swim in the ocean and I like to do a little bit of snorkeling, but then that's it. I like to be back on the boat. Once everyone got back on the boat, it was off to our second stop to see the starfish in El Cielo. Also a note about the bathroom, they do have a bathroom on the boat, but this is what it looks like. It's this tiny, tiny little thing. So go to the bathroom before you leave. This was a much shorter snorkeling session because we were only looking at the starfish. Also, there was a few jellyfish spotting, so we didn't stay in the water too long before heading to a more shallow part of Cielo. So actually they had 3 stops in this excursion where we were going to have some drinks and food before heading back. And this is the part where you finally get to have some drinks. They did not want to serve alcohol before snorkeling, which is understandable. And then they also make fresh ceviche and they have fresh fruit. So it was really, really good, really amazing. One suggestion might be to bring snacks, especially if your kids aren't going to like something like this or you don't like it, because everyone was starving after all the swimming. And there was enough to go around, but we probably could have gone through some more. And the color of the water was truly amazing. I don't think I've seen anything like it, not even in Saona or Isla Mujeres or even Turks and Caicos. So it was awesome just to spend time in the water. We did some dancing. Again, we got to know everybody on the boat. So this was a really fun part of the trip. We also saw a bunch of stingrays swimming around, which was definitely not my favorite, but they didn't bother anyone. They were just kind of swimming all around the boats. Sadly, it was time to head back. Everyone wanted to stay all day. It was just perfect weather. The water was gorgeous, perfect temperature, but unfortunately, we had to head back so they could get their next trip going. But we still had fun on the way back. We danced, we kept drinking, and really just had so much fun with everybody on the boat. Another really good tip is that we did get sunburn on this trip, even though we put sunscreen on, because they do not allow you to put sunscreen on while you're on the boat because it's an environmental hazard to the water and to the fish. So we put it on back at the beach club, but it simply was not enough. So I actually bought this SPF hoodie and was excited to bring it on this trip. I got it just for this trip and I forgot it back in the room. And so it would have been perfect because you can even swim with it, and it probably would have prevented my shoulders from getting burned. My nose also got really burned. So just make sure that you use a lot of protection. I would say we got back to the beach club, I think around 2 p.m. Just in time for them to take out their 2:30 group excursion. And with the ticket, you do have access to their beach club all day. So you could stay there and eat and then get in the water. However, we wanted to go into town and get something to eat there and just kind of see what Cozumel was like. And it was very easy to get a taxi right at the club. They have taxis waiting for everyone getting off the boat, so that was no issue. Again, it was around $15 to get back into town by taxi. However, when we got back in town, we realized we were exhausted from the trip, and also it was perfect timing to catch the 3 o'clock ferry back. So we decided just to go ahead and get the tickets for the ferry back. Again, we had only purchased one way, so this is a really good tip, because if we had purchased round trip and the company that we had purchased round trip for wasn't leaving at 3, we were going to have to wait until the 4 o'clock ferry. So we purchased our ferry tickets, and then actually it was just in time before it started raining. So it started raining on our way back, so I don't even know if the other excursion got to go out or how they handle that. But then we decided to eat when we got back into Playa del Carmen. We actually found this new Mexican restaurant that was really good in Playa del Carmen. I think it was called Tapatas, and they made fresh guacamole and all the food was really good, but we were exhausted, so we could not wait to get back to the resort. It's also very easy to find a taxi in Playa del Carmen. Nacho was not available because he had an airport ride that afternoon. So he guided us, though, to make sure that they were not going to overcharge us for the ride back to the resort. So the tip he gave was always ask for their rate card and know ahead of time what you should be paying. So he told us it was probably going to be about $40 to $50 for a taxi ride from Playa del Carmen to the resort. And he was right. They charged us right about that. We arrived back to the resort around 6 p.m. So this really is an all-day excursion, a 12-hour day, but definitely worth it. I highly recommend it. You just have to factor in all of the transportation getting there and getting back. And I actually prefer being on my own for the transportation getting there and getting back, because like I mentioned before in the past, lots of times you get on a bus and you have to make stop after stop, dropping off the other passengers that are also going on the trip. So when we added up all the cost, it was $340. So $170 per person for the excursion. The excursion itself cost $59, and then the rest of that was transportation. So the taxi getting there, the ferry, and then the taxi round trip to the beach club. And then we also spent money. We had a margarita at the beach club, and then we had some food in Playa del Carmen, so I didn't even factor that in. But regardless, it was well worth it. This excursion is definitely on one of the top of my list of any that I've taken on my vacations. And actually, I would take the exact same excursion again because we enjoyed it so much and it was so beautiful. We did get really lucky with the weather, but it was just, I loved all the different stops. I loved the amount of time that you had for snorkeling. It wasn't too short, it wasn't too long. And the fact that you were back by 2 o'clock at the beach club. So I hope you found this review of our trip to Cozumel helpful. And I do answer all comments and questions, so please just drop them in the comment section below. And keep following us at 3 Days and Tres Noches, where we keep bringing you on fun and exciting adventures and bring you honest, to-the-point reviews about the destinations that we travel to.
3 Days, 3 Noches. 3 Days, 3 Noches.
Follow